Hello, boils and ghouls. My name is Ashley, and this week I watched Pearl. This movie lets you know right out the gate that this girl ain't right. Pearl is a prequel to X, which I haven't seen, or the new one, Maxine, for that matter. But from the trailers I've seen for X, I had some idea of what to expect from this movie. Mostly that Pearl is an unhinged young woman that is desperate to be a star. She lives on a farm in Texas with her parents, her mother Ruth, who is, in my opinion, honestly, a bitch, and her father, who, as Pearl describes him, is infirm and pretty much fully paralyzed. And it seems Pearl and her mom also believes that he's not fully there mentally, because neither of them seem to have a problem with Pearl bathing in front of him, which honestly I had a problem with. I don't understand why that was necessary. We see later that he is definitely still there because Pearl approaches him and he's crying. So, definitely probably shouldn't have done the bad thing. Also, he doesn't have a name. There's two characters in this movie that don't have names. One is him and one is another guy I'll mention later. Ruth, Pearl's mother, is miserable. And I don't think she really likes being on that farm any more than Pearl does, but she's willing to accept her hand in life more than Pearl is. You know, she is said, this is what I was given, and even though I hate it, I'm dealing with it. Although, I don't really know about that. Because she kind of seems to resent Pearl a lot for wanting something different and more out of life and for herself. In fact, she says she hates having to care for her husband in the state that he's in because, quote, she's his wife, not his mother. I'm sorry, Ruth, but this is what you agreed to when you said the words in sickness and in health. You know, you accepted this as part of your wifely responsibility, part of being a spouse and in a relationship with this guy. This is the sickness part. Although, really, I don't know how much Ruth even does for him because we're constantly seeing her tell Pearl to bathe him, feed him, and change him. That's his daughter, not his wife. Why is she doing it? I understand helping out, but she's not the one married to the man. It's kind of weird, you know? I wouldn't want to have to do 2 out of those 3 things for my father. I would if I had to, but I don't think Pearl has to because her mom is there. Mom should be doing it. That's all I'm saying. So honestly, I think they kind of just leave him in that wheelchair all day and night. Like there's a scene of Ruth crying in bed, and I don't think he was there with her, so I think they just leave him in that chair, which is horrible. But we do see throughout the movie that Pearl actually cares about her father. He's her favorite parent, probably, because she shows no concern for her mom in any way. Ruth sends Pearl into town to get the dad's medicine, and while she's out, she uses some of the leftover money to go see a movie. I don't blame her, I do the same thing. As she's leaving, she meets the projector operator, the other nameless character that I mentioned a few minutes ago. That's this guy. She has a brief conversation with him where she informs him that she is married. Her husband's name is Howard. He's over in Europe fighting World War I. And he tells her, next time you want to watch a movie, just come knock on the projector room door. On her way home, she has an odd encounter with the creepiest scarecrow I've ever seen in my entire life. The head was too real looking. It weirded me out a bit. That night at dinner, Ruth calls her out for her abnormal behavior that she exhibits when she thinks no one is watching, and tells Pearl that it scares her. And she thinks Pearl is dangerous. She's a danger to others. And I'm sorry, if you're that concerned about your daughter's behavior, maybe do something about it. You've probably been seeing this for a while. Why did you let her get married? Why didn't you take her to a hospital or something? Like, I know it's 1918, and in that time period, she probably would have been locked away somewhere, but given what we know of Pearl, maybe that's what she needed. But then we wouldn't have any movies, so I guess that couldn't happen. And also, Ruth needs help at the farm. Anyway, she gets in a fight with her mom, and Ruth gets a little too close to a fire. Needless to say, that doesn't end well for her. Pearl then leaves the house and ends up spending the night with nameless projector guy. She mentions wanting to go to Europe, and he's like, yeah, sure. One day I'll take you to Europe. We'll go. He drives her home, and she introduces him to her dad like he's her new boyfriend. And maybe they both had that intention. It's never clearly stated. She leads him upstairs to her bedroom, and then there's this weird banging sound. He's concerned about it. He's worried it's her dad. It's nice to see somebody worried about him. And, you know, it's not her dad. She gives him this line about it being the dog. But we all know really it's Mom. She then shows him around the farm and introduces him to all of her animals, telling him their names. And of course, naturally, he asks, "What's your dog's name?" And she responds with, "Oh, we don't have a dog." Pearl, girl, if you're going to lie to somebody, you have to remember the bullshit you told them not 2 minutes ago, okay? Jeez. So now she realizes she done messed up, right? And becomes upset because now he wants to leave. He caught her in a lie and is now uncomfortable and wants to leave. Understandable. Honestly, he should have never even gotten involved with her in the first place. But anyway, she says to him, "You were never going to take me to Europe, were you?" No kidding, Pearl. I knew that the moment he said it to you. Also, it's World War I and there's an influenza outbreak. When exactly did she think they'd be able to go? Like, really? Not until, like, after her husband came back from the war. I guess she was planning on just running away with this dude. She then proceeds to take him out with a pitchfork and feed him to her pet gator Theta, Lake Placid style. She even attempted to feed her dad to Theta, but her mom came up behind her, so she stopped. I think she thought that she was doing him a favor, plus she was, like, you know, trying to plan a way to leave, I guess. Now, earlier in the film, her husband's mom and sister come to check on them and bring them food, which Ruth is offended because she thinks that they're taking pity on her and tells them that they're not a charity case. But her sister-in-law, Mitzi, tells her that the church is holding dance auditions. Does Pearl want to come? And of course she does, because she is dying to be a star and desperate to get off this farm. And she knows her mom's never going to allow her to go, but she's planning on going anyway, and she assumes she's going to get picked. So I think that's why she did what she did with Dad. She thought it would be better off. This was, you know, pre the mom catching herself on fire, but I don't know if it was so much catching herself on fire or just an accident during their altercation, really. Anyway, she joins Mitzi at this dance audition. She has this whole, like, imagination daydream performance with backup dancers and everything. Like a chorus line of dancers, you know, like they used to have back in the day. And she thinks it's the best performance that she's ever done. And it probably is. She looks a little crazy, but dancing at that time, very different. They don't accept her. The reasons they give is because she's not young enough and she's not blonde. Which, I mean, even today is typical, right? Tale as old as time. You're not young enough, you're not blonde enough, you're not this, you're not that. It's always something. But you know who is young and blonde? If you said Mitzi, you'd be correct. Pearl don't know that, though, that they've chosen her. Mitzi goes back to the farm with Pearl, who is upset about not being chosen. So I guess she wants to be a good sister-in-law. She's always talking about how sister-in-laws need to stick together. And she's trying to be a friend to Pearl. Because honestly, I don't think Pearl knows anybody else outside of her family or her husband's family. And Pearl just starts talking, you know. She says to Mitzi, "I don't deserve your brother. I've done horrible things. I don't know how to tell him. I can't bring myself to write them down." And all that, understandably, right? Like, my God, the things she has done, right? So Mitzi, trying to help and be a good friend and sister-in-law, says, "Well, pretend I'm Howard. You know, tell me what you want to tell him." Pearl then proceeds to trauma dump and confess everything that's been happening recently. And of course, now Mitzi is disturbed, rightfully, as she should be. We all would be. And it's like, okay, well, you know, I gotta get home. I gotta go. I gotta get home now. Because I think we'd all be hightailing it the hell out of that place. When she turns to leave, Pearl says, "They picked you, didn't they?" The judges at this dance competition. This dance audition. You can see Mitzi is a little bit hesitant to say anything. And that was my first instinct, like, girl, do not open your mouth. You have no idea. After everything she just told you, definitely keep it to yourself. And then when it comes time to leave, you just disappear into the wind. It ain't that hard. It's 1918. She not gonna know. Just run. But Pearl says, "I'm not gonna be mad. You can tell me." So she does. Big mistake. And Pearl lets her walk out the door. Mitzi does one of these and looks over her shoulder as she's walking faster and faster to distance herself. She notices Pearl coming out the house with an axe, which I expected an axe to be more prominent in this movie because I think the poster for X, she's holding an axe. Then Mitzi does the one thing that I freaking hate that happens in almost every damn horror movie that's ever been made. She trips over literally nothing, her own feet, running down the driveway, giving Pearl an opportunity to catch up. I hate that. I think Pearl could have caught up to her naturally because she wasn't following her very quickly. And I think if Pearl wanted to run, she probably could have caught her on her own. So Mitzi becomes yet another victim of Pearl. I assume she's also been given to Theta because she's done it once before. She feeds a goose to her at the beginning. So I don't remember what happens with her or if they even show what happens with her, but I'm assuming that's where she ended up. After that, Pearl goes back inside the house and now she's fully lost it. She's like fully in her mental breakdown, psychosis, whatever she's got going on. Full force. She takes the corpses of her parents because they're both gone. Mom has passed. She puts dad out of his, what I'm sure was misery, living like that, because she thought she was leaving, right? She didn't want to leave him alone, can't take him with her. She sets them up around the dining table and puts the food her mother-in-law brought that Ruth would not accept. Ruth just left it sitting outside, rotting and like collecting maggots and being gross. So she takes that food and she puts it on the table and goes about her life like everything is normal because she's totally checked out. And then her husband finally comes home from the war and finds his in-laws rotting corpses at the dining table and is of course a little bit concerned. And Pearl walks back into the room like everything is normal, greets him and says, "Oh, you're home," with the most creepy, like panicky, manic looking smile I've ever seen. And then the camera just like holds on her for the longest time through like a good chunk of the credits before it finally fades out. I guess to make you uncomfortable because it's very uncomfortable. It's not a still shot. You know, like you can see Mia Goth is moving and blinking and just, it's very creepy. Which obviously they did to enhance the fact that she is creepy and uncomfortable. Honestly, if I was Howard, I would have turned right the hell back around and run out that door. He did not survive a war to come home to that. No thank you. I'm sure that's the last thing he wants to see. That's the last thing anybody wants to see. I don't ever want to see that. This movie was interesting. I wasn't expecting... I mean, this is just me being reminded of Lake Placid because she feeds the alligator in the lake, you know? But every time I see that, I think of Betty White and Lake Placid just feeding the thing. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. And it definitely adds to me wanting to watch the other two more than I already did. But something I really loved about this movie was that Mia Goth co-wrote it with Ti West, and I feel like you don't see that often. Like, I'm sure there's probably more than what I'm aware of, but the only other movie I know off the top of my head that has lead actors also as writers is Ghostbusters, which was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. So I like when I see that. You know, she's taking an active role in what this character is. But yeah, now I'm definitely more interested to see what the other two movies are about. But that's all for this video. Please feel free to subscribe, click like if you like it. If there's anything you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments down below. And I'll see you next time. Be excellent to each other. Bye.